What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the Apple TV Plus original series Severance Season 2. This will, of course, follow episode 4, which is called Woe's Hollow and is directed by Ben Stiller.
All right, so take it for Severance and the crew behind Severance to give us a swerve of an episode that takes everything that is great about Severance itself, the mysteries, the ideas, the ideologies, and completely turn on its head and give us something completely different. It's like that Monty Python sketch, and now for something for completely different. The Woe's Hollow episode is one of my favorites of the season. If you've watched my last review, which I think you probably have, and thank you so much. This episode was something that when I watched it the first time, I felt that was going to be truly unique. Whether people like it or not is a different story because it goes in a completely different tangent, but it still allows Severance to add mystery as well as answering some questions that have been theorized. And I really truly love this episode. I love the idea of what it does. I think it's funny that, like a lot of Lumen, things that they do, it's very corporate, going on a retreat, going in the middle of the woods, which I've never found ideal. I never understood why they think going into the woods is a possible good scenario. A retreat's a very weird thing, but it actually reminds me of the Simpsons episode where Homer and Burns team up and go on a retreat with the group after some failures. And it's just what it is. But it basically is an episode that really puts Irving forefront and center of the episode, because if you watch the episode, of course you have, that it doesn't end well for Irving B. But the journey to get there really opens a lot of questions up about what exactly is happening in this world that is Severance and its nature of its being. And so as the episode opens up, Irving comes out of the severed situation, the ding, all that stuff. But he finds himself in the middle of a lake in a tundra, in the middle of the winter, because this takes place during the winter, of course. That's what Severance does. And why is he there? We have no idea why he's there. It's going to a different place. Where are they? Are they outside? Or are they, what is going on? And then he sees Mark, of course, on top of the canyon or whatever, on top of the mountain or hill or whatever. We come to find out that they've basically woken up, according to the video of Milchek, in the middle of a place called Dichen National Forest. Now, I did read up on there is a National Forest group that has the lead owner, or the lead new group CEO or whatever, was named Dieter. So I don't know if that's kind of it's a coincidence. I don't know, but there is a national forest where one of the members, his first name is Dieter. So who knows what Severance and Dan Erickson and all the crew is doing, but it might be a good homage. I mean, I don't know. But anyways, they find out they're on a retreat. The MDR crew, Helly and Dylan and Mark and Irving are there. They have to follow to get to a place called Woe's Hollow, which is part of the Egan history, part of the Egan lore. Who is Dieter Egan? That's one of the questions asked, and we learn later on who he is. But at first, we're like, who is he? What is happening? Why are they here? It's it's a retreat. I mean, that's what we know, what Lumen says and what Milchek says. But what is it really truly? He says, follow the clues. There'll be things along the way to help you. And that's when we get our next shot of another version of Mark in the distance. Now, we saw this character in I think the very first episode of this season. What does it mean? We're not entirely sure, but as they walk through the forest, they find different versions of themselves pointing in the direction that they need to go. It leads them to this location where they find a book about Dieter Egan. Now, what's really fascinating is Dieter Egan was the twin of Keir Egan, and he was killed. That leads into the twin situation. Why are there twins of these individuals? Even Dylan goes, okay, so there are twins. But what does that mean? What does the twin situation mean? Dieter could have a twin, Keir could have a twin of Dieter. I mean, why? It leads into the suggestions on are these clones? Are they is that what Cold Harbor is? I had a theory that, it could be a multiverse situation. I mean, I don't know, because it's really fascinating to watch. They find out that Keir had a twin and these guys have twins and they're following their twins. I don't know. It's one of those theories, are these like the clones of these people and they're just not fully formed yet? And why are they pointing? Like, what is Lumen doing? Like, it leads up into so many more different possibilities on what exactly is happening, but it also eventually leads them to Milchek and Wolves Hollow, which is a very important location for Kier and of course Dieter and his sister and stuff like that. We'll learn about that later on. But it also, because Irving's so important to this episode, he starts to tell Mark about how he's questioning what exactly is happening to what is Helly, what is his Night Gardener, like everything about it is starting to come to full effect about what Helly's character is doing, and he just doesn't believe that Helly is the real Helly. He thinks there's something going on. But they find Milchek, and they learn that Wolves Hollow is very important to Kier and Dieter, and it basically leads to them having a campfire story around the fire situation that you would have as a kid, because it's really funny to me that these people are being treated like kids, so they're having marshmallows and they're having food. They did come across a dead seal, which is really telling, because how long has that dead seal been there? Is it telling of the nature of like, has this been done before? It really just doesn't, you really just don't know. I mean, the dead seal, they're like, Irving's like, we should eat it. And I'm like, I'm not going to eat that thing. I'm like, yeah, who knows how long it's been dead, but it's frozen. It just makes you question, like, is it a telling sign of like how long this has been going on? Why is there a seal in the middle of the forest? I mean, it just, who the heck knows? Is it even a seal? It could be a person. I mean, who knows? But once again, when they go to the campfire and they're basically told about how Kier killed Dieter because he was unhappy with him, and there's like a masturbation situation or whatever, and like Dieter's eye popped out and he became one with the forest, and then his sister became really unhappy with him. It really makes you question, like, what is Lumen really telling you the truth about? What is he hiding? Because when Helly starts laughing, and of course Mark starts laughing, it's like, it's absurd. But Milchek, I think Tramell Tillman is really doing a fantastic job, like Emmy-worthy stuff in this. He gets really upset. He makes Miss Huang throw the marshmallows in the fire, and then he walks off, and it makes you question what exactly is happening. It really does. Why is he telling them this story? It's the nature of the cult version of what Lumen is. Are they really a cult? I don't know. It really is one of those things you have to kind of wonder about and kind of question. To be fairly honest, it leads open to a lot of possibilities on, what is Cold Harbor? What is a contingency? Is Cold Harbor, once again, is it the nature of like trying to instill the imbuing of like human emotions into these clones, or is it something else? Is a multiverse? I mean, who knows? I mean, there's a lot here that could deal with Cold Harbor. Once again, Irving confronts Helly about what was the Night Gardener wearing, what was his clothing, blah 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 blah, and so on and so forth. And she gets upset, and she's like, well, we know Irving's alone. He misses Bert, so that's why he's mad. And then Bert gets upset, and of course Dylan tries to calm him down, and of course Mark tries to calm him down. He accuses Mark of being very infatuated with Helly and not looking beyond. And of course Mark refuses to do that, and Irving walks away, to be fairly honest. And what really is interesting is how Irving is the more like analytical of the group. He's the more like straight edge character individual who really sees kind of something truly wrong with what's going on. And we'll see later on that he like loses his way, and he ends up falling asleep because he loses the torch, and he's lost in the middle of the woods. Now there's a few things about this last few minutes of this episode that are really kind of interesting. The simple fact of like, if what he's saying is true about Helly, that is not the any version of Helly, and the nature of Mark and Helly having sex, if what we learn later on is true, there is some really disturbing implications about what Helly is doing, about how she is using Mark, about how she is, because she watched that video of Mark and her kissing, of the implications that we find out as Irving accuses her of being an Egan, of how disturbed the Egan family truly is. Because if you remember the waffle party, why would the ideas of like the cult status is very prevalent in this series, but the waffle party and then what Hilly is doing here, there's a lot of disturbing implications about who the Egan family is, what they're implying, how rich people are of a different ilk of individuals that will do things that are very crazy. It's all about the controlled nature. It's all about the who are we as humans type of thing. But it leads Irving to have a dream where he walks through the woods. He comes across his computer console. He sits down. He sees the numbers, and then he sees Bert, which is telling of like his love for Bert. He wants to be with Bert. You know, that's kind of the obvious nature. But then he sees Keir Egan's sister. I think it's his sister sitting at the desk that Helly is sitting at typing, and she looks at him. Irving looks at the computer and sees the name Egan in like a jumbled amount of letters, but if you look closely, it says Egan, and he puts two and two together. He wakes up, and then he eventually confronts Helly. I love this sequence just for the audacious nature of like how horrifying it is, the nature of how our mind works, especially when we're like trying to confront the problem at hand, how our mind is able to unravel things, and the nature of like how Severance uses the mind to convolute a lot of things to play with. That's why there's always been this status in this series of like, what is Lachman doing with the mind? Why do they need to keep it such a secret? Because it really is kind of a crazy thing. Like, if they didn't do Severed, people still wouldn't know what's going on. I mean, it's just, you know, outside of like being able to tell the outside world, oh yeah, we're doing numbers and stuff like that, and we're, you know, raising sheep, and then we're like recreating plastics or like utensils or whatever. You know, the exports hall, all that stuff that would get out. That's why they were severed. But the point of the matter is, when Irving wakes up, he realizes what's going on, and he's going to confront the group about Helly. But when Mark and Dylan wake up, Helly's no longer there, and neither is Irving. And Milchek comes in. They go out because they hear screaming because Irving has confronted Helly about the simple fact of like, Helly's out. Innie was not. She's a nice person. She's a good person. She would never do something like that about, you know, like being a mean person. It's just not who she is. And then he starts to try and physically murder her until they give up the fact that she is not the Helly they know, that she is in fact an Egan. Now, you would kind of question if, like, you know, how far is Lachman really willing to go? And they're not willing to go that far, because as soon as Milchek puts his thing up to the radio, his voice up to the radio, he cancels the whatever initiative, Columbia initiative or whatever it's called, and it turns Helly back into Helly. And, you know, as she's being drowned, she's like, I'm confused, like, what is going on? And it proves that, you know, Lachman has been doing more, and that she is apparently an Egan. So there you go. Once again, the implications of what she did with Mark are really unsettling and really disturbing. And yeah, there you go. So she is an Egan. And once again, I love Tillman in this as Milchek, as Seth, because there is a level of like sadness to him, but there's also a level of like uncomfortable nature to his demeanor. It's very uncanny and very creepy to how his mannerisms are. I think Tramell does a really nice job, does a really fantastic job actually, of portraying someone that feels dead behind the eyes, but feels like he has an initiative. And there is something unsettling about how he talks. And if you ever watch like the 10 Commandments, and this is just, it's really an aside, but if you watch the 10 Commandments, when he banishes Irving to basically death and strips him of everything, it's very similar to the scene where Ramesses does the same thing to Moses, but doesn't kill him, but sends him off to the desert, where he's stripped of everything, his soul, he's stripped of, you know, his name, his place in the world of Lachman, his everything, and he's effectively going to be killed. And I don't know, once again, it could be a coincidence, but it really feels like there is a level of kind of like Lachman is kind of like the Egypt. They're building a world that is very corrupt and not very corrupt, but very different. And the fact that Irving is being sent to his death, or Irving B, the Innie, is being sent to his death, is really telling. But that's what it leads to. It leads to the very end, where it does a real quick blackout, when it, of course, is like when we die, everything goes black, and therefore Irving B is gone. And where that goes, I have no idea. But as the Irving B and the Innie, it really is going to be unsettling to see how they react to it. But that's kind of how the episode ends. And once again, it's a really kind of chaotic episode that really delves into more of Severance, delves into more of the history of the Egan family, finally reveals that Helly has not been telling the truth, that she is an Egan. And it really is crazy, to be fairly honest. It's really interesting. It's really, I love the setting. I love the look of this episode. I think it's very elegant. I think it's very, there's a lot of darkness to it. There's a lot of unsettledness to it. It's very beautiful to watch. It shows that there's a lot of money behind this series right now. And I think, what Ben Stiller does as a director is kind of lean us into some really interesting mysteries while giving us some really interesting, fun visuals. And once again, that scene where Irving has the dream and he sees Egan's sister and he sees Bert, there is some real horror elements to that. And I really appreciate that because I think that takes the series in some really interesting directions. Irving's one of those characters that's always had some very interesting visuals added to his character, whether it be the black goo, whether it be, what he sees in the outside world, the door, the paintings. I think it's really telling that Irving has more of a grasp on this world than anybody in this series. And once again, the implications of what Helly has done to with Mark are going to be telling. So with that said, that is overall the take on this episode, Wells Hollow. It's fantastic. It really is. I don't know what else to say. There's not really any issues I have with the episode. I just can't wait to talk about the next episode and, go from there. Once again, we're still 6 episodes away from the season finale. And once again, the great thing about this season or this series is like each episode could feel like a season finale. The end of this could be a season finale for all we know, but of course we know it's not. But once again, a great episode. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. It's one of my favorites of the series. I think it's fantastic. I think it's up there with the season finale of the last season. And I can't wait to see where this series goes. It's gonna be pretty crazy. So anyways, with that said, that's going to be my take on the 4th episode of Season 2 of Severance, Wells Hollow. Thank you so much for watching. As I always say, let me know in the comments below. What do you think of this episode? What do you think of the nature of what it's doing? Where do you think it's heading? What do you think that is going to happen? Once again, we saw like a small portion of course, Gemma, which is really interesting. But let me know in the comments below what you think. Otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. As always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.